Hello there, Eric Hudden once again, and thank you very much for taking a look at this video. In this video, we're going to be talking about why silver and why now, meaning 2011 March when this video is being made. So first of all, I think to really appreciate the incredible value that silver is as we speak, particularly physical silver is what we'll be talking about today, you have to first of all take a look at historically silver and the situation and how it's changed. So let's look at the big picture. We'll talk about, over the last hundreds of years, you've always been kind of generally looking at anywhere from a 10 to maybe 16 to 1 ratio as far as the value of gold and silver. And that relates to often balancing out somewhere near the physical ratios between gold and silver. So let's look at, say, 1950 as an example. And in 1950, at that time, you had roughly 10 billion ounces of silver above ground, okay, as far as ounces of silver that were physically available. And then you had roughly 1 million ounces of gold. Now, as times have changed, there's been more and more gold that's been mined because obviously it's more expensive and more profitable to mine. Also, gold is something that's just kind of hoarded, it's put away, it's in the form of jewelry, or a lot of governments will have gold in their safes. More and more governments now are buying gold, and what that does is it protects, it stores their wealth. And if you look at the way the ratios have changed, because silver has been so inexpensive over the years, and nowadays you've got a lot of new uses for silver, more and more technology, whether it's the batteries or the chips that are involved in different technology. Nowadays you got a lot of silver that gets used in, solar and a lot of different things along those lines. Even clothing, because silver is such a good antibacterial and antimicrobial. You've got a lot of silver that's used in clothing to keep the bacteria from growing. So combine that with the new medical uses where they're finding all types of medical uses for silver, you're going to find that it's getting used up faster than ever before. And so that 10 billion ounce surplus that we had in 1950 has now been eroded all the way down to where now you hear as low as 500 million, 700 million. I'm just going to be generous and say that there's 1 billion ounces of silver above ground. And so if you look at what's happened to that ratio, you remember in 1950 there were 10 billion ounces of silver and only 1 billion ounces of gold. And so you could justify both the ratio physically and then the value, roughly 10 ounces of gold, or I'm sorry, 10 ounces of silver would equal 1 ounce of gold as far as the actual value, which kind of reflected the physical ratio. Now here we are in 2011, and those numbers have completely flip-flopped. Because silver's been so cheap, combined with all the new uses industrially for silver, you've now got maybe 1 billion ounces of silver above ground. On the other hand, because gold has been mined and has been hoarded and set away, it's estimated that there's over 7 billion ounces of gold right now. And so with 7 billion ounces of gold, supply-wise, compared to say 1 billion ounces of silver, you'd think that it would be silver, more rare, that would be more expensive, right? I mean, logic tells you that, supply and demand tells you that. But because of all the things going on in the silver market over the years, the manipulation, which has recently been exposed, you're finding that that is way, way, way out of whack. And so I personally believe there's a lot of upside for both gold and silver. I think they're going to go up together. But I think you're going to see silver starting to close that gap. And if you looked at recently what's happened since the kind of manipulation has been exposed, you might be aware both JP Morgan and HSBC are being sued for manipulating the precious metals markets, as well as many others. But what's being exposed right now and they're being sued for is particularly the precious metals markets, where through their GLD and SLV ETFs, they were selling literally millions and millions of ounces of gold and silver that doesn't even physically exist. And of course that dilutes the value. So anyway, with the exposure recently, you're finding the gold and silver market are both coming up. Even just in the last 12 months, you've had gold up about 28%. Silver's well up over 100%, and 300% if you look at the last couple of years. So silver is now bridging that gap. Because it was held artificially low for so long, it's now trying to find its way and find its true value. So I think both gold and silver will continue to go up, but I do believe that silver has the biggest upside because of its simple rarity. It's never been as rare as it is right now in relation to demand. For example, in 2010, you had about just under 1 billion ounces, 890 million estimated use of silver as far as ounces. And what happened was they only mined in 2010 about roughly 650 million ounces. So that surplus that we've been eating into from that 10 billion ounces in 1950 has slowly deteriorated to the point where today we're using more silver than we are mining. And so that's been the case ever since 1991. We've actually been using more silver than mining, and that surplus that we've been pulling from is no longer there. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see that gap continue to close. And this is why I'm so bullish on silver. Now, I'm not a professional advisor. I don't have a license or anything like that. I'm just sharing with you my personal opinion, just an observation of history. And I think you're going to find what's going to happen. There's so much paper money out there right now that's being created, just in dollars alone. Interestingly enough, it took us 216 years in this country to come up with our first $4 trillion. From 2000 to 2008, we got our next $4 trillion. Well, guess what? Since 2008, we've already added another, going on over $4 trillion more. So these bailouts that you're hearing about, this quantitative easing, all the stimulus packages, you're going to find that those are going to have an effect. As that money finds its way into the system, it's going to dilute the purchasing power of the dollars that are already out there. And so people that hold money in their 401ks, their IRAs, they're going to find that money is going to become worth less and less and less. And it's interesting because when you look back through history, every fiat currency, they start out at a certain value, and then they become worth less, and they become worth less, until they're worthless. And the smart money always finds its way, when it sees this happening, it finds its way into precious metals. That's the safe haven. So I'm going to give you this visual analogy. I've heard it explained like this. I like this visual. You're looking at an Olympic-sized pool representing the gold market, a little kiddie pool representing the silver market. And now you have this huge ocean of money out there, all over the world, this ocean of money. There's more money out there than ever in the history of mankind. And all that money gets nervous. In a tough economy, it's looking for somewhere to go. And historically, whenever the currencies, the fiat currencies, have gone down in value, the smart money leaps into precious metals and holds its value there until such time as it goes back into, usually it's a new currency. Usually it's about every 40 years or so there's a new currency, because all these debt-based currencies, they simply don't work. There's only so much new debt that you can create to pay off the old debt, and then eventually what happens is all the credit cards you can come up with, all the loans, all the money you can make, doesn't even pay the interest on the debt. And when that happens, to a person, you go bankrupt. When that happens to a country, you go bankrupt. And if that happens to your currency is going to crash. So bottom line is, imagine all that nervous money, all that scared money looking for a safe place. And you've got a world, an ocean of money that's going to be looking for this little Olympic pool and this little kiddie pool of gold and silver. So visualize there's clear glass walls that go up. And when all that money, that ocean of money, tries to flow into that pool and that little kiddie pool, it's just going to force the value of those metals up tremendously. And I think you're going to see eventually there will be a time, just like one time you had palladium was worth more than platinum. And today, platinum is worth more than palladium. Well, that same thing is happening in the physical world between gold and silver. I predict one day, maybe not too far away, you will see a time where silver is worth more than gold. And so that's my reason for being in silver. I've been collecting physical silver for years, and I'm going to continue to collect it, even at $37, even at $50, even at $100. It's an extremely undervalued commodity. It's a bargain at $100 an ounce. And so what will happen, you'll see that that gap will continue to close. And I recommend putting silver bullion away, silver collectibles, because these are non-confiscatable. If the government ever tries to take our bullion, we don't have to declare a collectible coin. So I collect both. If you're interested in learning more about how to build some, physical silver collection for yourself, give me a call. Eric Padden. You can reach me at 858-705-2487. Also, you can jump on my blog. I've got some great articles on there, some videos and stuff, and that would be at isncoinsbusiness.com. isncoinsbusiness.com. Go ahead and check it out. I think you'll be impressed, and give me some feedback. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to catching up with you in the next video. Make it a great day.